Hello, this is Pastor Smith, of course, and some of you may remember that back during the COVID crisis, when we were unable to attend church for a period of time, that I would send out these little recordings called COVID chats, little devotional thoughts or historical reflections, and a number of times people have mentioned that they would enjoy something like that again, and we've been thinking about it, and so Pastor Nick and I have decided that we're going to, God willing, begin to send out something like that. Maybe the other pastors will participate with us as well. And we're going to call it Shepard Talks. Shepard Talks. And so this is the first Shepard Talk. And as I was thinking about this and introducing this, my mind was really going to some of the events that are occurring in our country right now, the upheaval, the startling and shocking events of the assassination attempt on President Trump, and then the resignation, former President Trump, and then the resignation of President Biden from the presidential race, and all the confusion, all the corruption that we see in our country in these days, and it can be very upsetting and discouraging for us as Christians. And so I want to say some things that I hope will be helpful for us to in helping us to keep our minds not to be overly frantic, to trust in God and to see God's hand at work in all that is happening around us. And as I thought about that, my mind went to Daniel chapter 2. You may remember the occasion where Nebuchadnezzar had his dream, and God revealed the dream and its interpretation to Daniel after much prayer. But before Daniel went to Nebuchadnezzar and he revealed the dream and declared what the interpretation is, we first have this record of this a prayer of thanksgiving and praise that Daniel gives to the Lord. And it's a part of that I want to draw our attention to. In Daniel chapter 2, verses 20 to 21, Daniel, in his prayer praise, says these words: "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are His, and He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings." There are two very simple truths that I want to draw attention to from these words in the book of Daniel. First of all, Daniel praises God as the sovereign director of all of the course and events of human history. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are His. And now notice the first part of verse 21. And He changes the times and the seasons. He changes the times and the seasons. Now the use of the personal pronoun He, that serves to stress that it is God who does this, God alone, in distinction from any other. And what is it He alone does? He changes the times and the seasons. Well, what does this mean? Well, these words, times and seasons, are basically synonyms, and when taken together, as we see them here, they're not referring to seasons in the sense of when we think of fall, winter, spring, summer. But what is meant by this language of the times and the seasons is speaking about the events of human history. The idea is that it is God who actually controls the occurrences and fluctuations of time and space. It's not chance. It's not Mother Nature. It's not fate. The developments of history are under God's sovereign control. And notice He doesn't say that God is simply aware of the changes or the developments of the times and the seasons, that He merely foreknows or foresees what will happen. No, it is He who changes the times and the seasons. He is in control of human history. But then notice there's a second truth Daniel underscores in his praise. Secondly, Daniel praises God as the sovereign determiner of all political changes and human rulers. After praising Him as the one who changes the times and the seasons, he then says, He removes kings and raises up kings. You see, the Scriptures are clear that all political rulers and political changes are under God's sovereign control. And this is something that we see illustrated over and over throughout the Scriptures. I'll just give a few examples. We've been learning from Pastor Nick in his wonderful series on the book of Exodus. We've been of late learning about the Pharaoh who ruled Egypt during the time of Moses. After God sent 7 plagues upon Egypt, He said to Pharaoh through Moses, Exodus 9:15-16, "Now if I had," or it could be translated by "now I could have, stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have been cut off from the earth. In other words, God says, if I had so pleased, I could have already wiped you out, Pharaoh, and wiped out all of your people. And then he says, but indeed for this purpose, I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. Who raised up Pharaoh to the throne of Egypt? God did. And God reminds him that he could remove him from his throne or remove him from the earth any moment if he wants to, but he had him there to provide the backdrop against which God would make his glory known by sending his plagues upon that nation and by delivering his people from Pharaoh's hand. It is God who removes kings and raises up kings. Read about Saul, the first king of Israel, and you'll see that it was God who raised him up, and it was God who brought him down. And when God brought him down, it was God who raised up David to take his place. Now, Pharaoh and Saul were both wicked kings. David was a righteous king, but whether wicked or righteous, God was in control. It is God who determines all political changes and rulers, good or bad. He raises up one ruler or one administration, and he brings another down as he pleases to accomplish his purposes. And ultimately, in the end, my dear brothers and sisters, all wicked rule on earth will be put down by the Lord Jesus Christ when he returns to judge the world in righteousness. And every time it happens on a smaller scale before that day, it's but a foretaste of the final judgment to come. When Mussolini, the Italian dictator, was in power, school children in Tunisia were taught to say the following blasphemous prayer: I believe in the supreme leader, creator of the black shirts, and in Jesus Christ, putting Mussolini and Jesus Christ as though they were at some kind of equal level. Well, on April the 29th, 1945, he was hung upside down along with his mistress in public disgrace. Hitler and the Nazis boasted that the Third Reich would last for 1,000 years. The 1,000-year Reich, they called it. 12 years, 4 months, and 8 days later, it came crashing down. Hitler himself committed suicide. It is God who removes kings and raises up kings. So my dear brothers and sisters, let us trust in God in these volatile and uncertain times. We should pray for our rulers as the Lord has taught us to pray. We should pray that God would have mercy upon them, that He would save them, that He would give them wisdom to govern our country in a manner that is righteous and good and beneficial to all of us. We should pray for peace and righteousness in our land and for the progress of the gospel. But let us as God's people, let us not become frantic and overly fearful. Let us not be like the prognosticators and the experts on CNN and NBC and Fox News, getting all worked up and frantic as though this current election is the most important event that has ever happened in human history. But let us not be overly frantic and fearful. Not that it's not important. It is important. We should be concerned about it. Very concerned about it. We should be praying about these things. But remember that we can rest in the sovereignty of our God, who loves us and gave His Son to save us. The God who is ultimately working all things after the counsel of His own will and for the good of His people and for the furtherance of His kingdom. May God help us, no matter what happens, to keep our eyes upon Christ and continue to preach the gospel and do the work of the kingdom that He has given us to do. Well, until next time, may the Lord richly bless you. Goodbye.